And yeah, now I've talked a lot about like the the struggles of our generation, because I think I'm fascinated by that and like how we can unpack it. But I love to also talk about solutions. So like I think a solution to that is poetry. Like poetry will save the world. Anything circular reasoning. I think that the solution that is community more specifically which was what I'm seeing. Like I mentioned before. I know that you obviously run poetry events. I know that you've seen the same thing I've seen, which is an influx of people searching for community. And once they find it, they're so hooked, because there's a very rare, I think it's rare that, especially in the West, you find a community of people who are like-minded, and especially poetry, where it's like open and, generous and like, kind of vulnerable. It's very, very difficult to find that. So what have you learned from like hosting your kind of both your nights? Talk to me a little bit about that, why you started them, what you've learned about them, some of the stuff that you've kind of understood about community from that.
Definitely. I think so when I first started getting into poetry open mics, so Jordan's was the first one. I remember from that first event, so the host was Yomi Shode, who is like a huge poet in his own right, probably one of my inspirations. But like he was the host, and the way he was hosting was like really uplifting, because like when you go to poetry events, a lot of people come alone. They might come with one friend, but the vast majority of people don't know anyone else there. So the host plays an integral role in making everyone feel safe and comfortable and keeps the show running. And I was going to a few events, and I was like, oh, I'd love to make my own one, because like I call it the poetry bug. And I was like thinking, how can I like bring people together in this way and do it like my own style? So I used to live in Mile End, and across the road from where I lived, and I grew up in this area, there was like a new cafe called the Highland Cafe, and I used to go in there, have a coffee, read a book or whatever. And I noticed at the back they had like a space, like just empty space. And I was thinking one day, like I went up to the owner, I was like, would it be okay if I like ran like a poetry night here? And he was like, you can have it for free so long as people buy drinks. And I was like, okay, I'm set. That's like the first part of the puzzle. And then I was thinking, okay, how else can I do this? And then I went to like an open mic night one day, and I saw this girl perform on the mic, and she was like really on it. You could tell like she had her shit together. And her name was Ella Dorman Gaich. So like afterwards in the interval, I was like, hey, like I was thinking of starting this open mic night. I don't know what it was, but like I think it's like one of those classic fate moments. So I asked her, do you want to run it with me? And then we could work together. She was like, yes, let's do it. And I think if it was anyone else, Off the Chest wouldn't have been as successful. But I think Ella and I have like a really good sort of chemistry in the way we work. And she drove a lot of it to begin with, even though I'd kind of found the space and all of this and that. And so Off the Chest was born in October 2019. And I think my ethos around that was always about bringing people together for poetry, because I think a lot of people are looking for spaces. London is a really unique place where like there's so many people. Ironically, it can feel lonely, because like there's so many people about. Surely like I wouldn't feel lonely. I'd speak to people, I'd get to know people. But actually, the more people there are, the more lonely you can feel when you don't have a community. And I think poetry is a unique sort of, by its very definition, it's quite intimate. And so you're kind of skipping the small talk when you're in a poetry space, because people are bearing their souls, So you're immediately finding connections in a poetry space that you might not in like a music space, for example, or somewhere else. And so when I ran the first few events, I was like, we're onto something here, because I'm feeling like I'm bringing people together. And in fact, like years later, people have come up to me and said, oh, I made friends with this person because of you guys. Like you gave me an excuse to like find other people. And that's what, that's a big part of what drives me, I think, bringing people together And of course, the poetry as an art form is great, but like bringing people together is something special.
It's so beautiful, honestly. Like just seeing it, because you see people kind of like open themselves up there. It's very rare, like you said. You know, poetry is such a vulnerable art form that you really are bearing your soul. So once you bear your soul, I'm not going to ask you about the weather. Like,
exactly.
I really want to. What you said was so resonating. Let's get straight into it. And you find those kind of people where. They're very deep people. You know, a lot of times in life, I feel like a lot of us have grown up, people saying you're too deep. Or like you take things so too deeply. And then you find poetry and you're like, wait, everyone is like that. Everyone here is that deep. Yeah, they do take stuff that deep. And it's like, it opens you up to kind of share that part of yourself and be open and, you know, connect to another person. And the beautiful...
passion as well. Like, it's not just about being like really sad immediately or really revealing. You just want to be in a space where people actually give a shit about what they're doing. I think maybe in British culture specifically, there's a sort of like inbuilt, and I do it as well. You don't want to seem like the guy who cares too much.
Yes.
Right? You don't want to seem like that person who's like trying too hard.
Yes.
But with poetry, it demands passion from you. You can't half-ass poems, right? You have to go all in. And I think that passion, whether it's about a cause, whether it's about just yourself or, you know, whatever else it is, that's what opens up these doorways for better conversations and better relationships, I think, you know?
What are some of the hardest parts about running a poetry open mic? What are some of the logistics, or is it like hosting or...
I would say the lack of money is an obvious one. I think the state of the arts in this country is dire, and it's only getting worse. And I don't want to sound like, you know, like such a nihilist about it, but the truth is the people who run this country, they're letting the arts sector be ran into the ground, and part of that is because there's a lack of funding around the arts in general. I'm not saying like I was expecting to come out of the gates and be funded, but I think when it started as a small thing, it was cool. You know, it's like you'd get your mate who's a poet and be like, oh, I can only really pay you £20. Is that okay? Even though it's not okay, they would say yes. But they probably made a loss like on that, because like it cost £10 to get to the venue, and then like, I don't know, £10 for like dinner, because like it's an evening event, and then they've overspent that £20 already. But that, I guess you can get away with it when you're beginning. But then if you want to build, you know, because you want to grow, and we wanted to take off the chest into like more purpose, because, you know, the cafe, Highland Cafe was great, but it was tiny. It was probably like just a bit bigger than the size of this room in terms of the space we were in.
Yeah.
We didn't even have a mic. Like, literally, like...
Just project your voice?
Just project your voice. People were sitting on the ground because we didn't have enough chairs. There's one toilet for like 40, 50 people. It was all of this stuff, right? So, like, it's cool to begin with because, like, you know, it's like a nice intimate vibe, da-da-da-da. But, like, after a year of doing that, it's like, are you still going to do it that way? No, you want to get, like, a mic in. You know, you want to make people feel comfortable in chairs. You want them to, you know, we didn't even have a person to kind of check people's tickets. So it was, like, solely on a trust basis. So, like, we didn't even know if half these guys paid for, like, their tickets. We're just, oh, you know, they look like they probably paid.
Yeah.
And you want to pay yourselves as well, because it is a job. So that's hard.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That's really hard. I mean, we've been successful a couple of times with Arts Council England, but like, yeah, you've really got to find those pots of funding. And you don't want to overcharge. Another way you could get around it, I guess, is if you charge like £20 a ticket, and then you could like fairly pay everybody. But then you're isolated. I come from like a working class background. I don't want to raise my prices to a crazy amount, you know, and then it changes the vibe as well. That's hard. And I'd say the second hardest thing is the amount of organization you've got to be on. Because I think a lot of people assume, like running a poetry event, it's all fun and games. You know, you just, it's just vibes, right? But the amount of emailing I do, the amount of messaging, the amount of like admin behind the scenes, 90% of running these events is marketing and admin. Like, it's not... It's sometimes, I mean, I do it because I love it, but like, that's the one thing you won't see from from the outside point of view. And it can be hard when you're already overwhelmed and with other things, but it has to be done.
No, I completely agree. I think it's even bigger than just because I also run events and I see that too. 100%. Most of it's just like the admin. Eventbrite is my best friend because it's just all day I'm on Eventbrite trying to like tweak this, tweak that, do this, and just like the amount of emails, the amount of like social media management.
Yeah.
I hate Instagram so much, but it's a part of the game. You know, you have to be able to connect to people, record yourself, promote this events so people can come. It's all of these things that people don't see and people just take for granted because it's just like, you know, it's front facing.
Definitely.
I think that's but okay, all of these things, they do lead up to a sense of achievement when things do go right. So I know that you recently had your 6-year anniversary of the chest. Talk to me about some of the achievements that you're proud of, what you guys have done.